back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, so I am here today to do a cover chat for you guys. I'm really excited about this cover chat because although I am only going to be talking about 4 different covers, I'm actually in love with this series and I really like the author and I really like the first book, so yeah, I'm just really excited about this, and I only read this fairly recently. The books that I'm going to be talking about today are actually part of a trilogy, and these are Bloodsong and Tower Lord, both of which are by Anthony Ryan and are book 1 and 2 in the Raven Shadow trilogy. I really loved Bloodsong. I ended up giving this one a 5-star rating, which is amazing, and then I was hoping to love Tower Lord just as much. I didn't end up quite loving it as much, but it's still awesome, and I gave this one a 3.5-star rating. The story of Bloodsong and Tower Lord, I will just give you a brief overview, is in the first book we follow the childhood and teenage years of Vaylin Alsorna as he grows up in the Brotherhood. He is a member of the Order and he has to train really hard with a lot of his friends from the Brotherhood to hone his skills to become a killer, to work for the king, to go out and restore faith to people and ensure that the faith is being followed. And it's a really, really wonderful, heartwarming story about this amazing character who has amazing friends throughout the story. They have such a laugh and they get into all sorts of trouble, and I absolutely adored this one. Moving on then to Tower Lord, we don't see quite as much of the friendships, which is why I didn't like it as much, but we do see a lot more of the world itself. We see a lot more of the politics which are happening in the world at the time, and we certainly get to see a lot more characters we see from different points of view within this one as well. So both of them are amazing, but let us begin with Bloodsong, because that is obviously the first one in the series. This was originally published in 2011, and this edition is the paperback published by Orbit Books in 2013 with 734 pages, and I absolutely love this cover. So instantly you see that this cover is an icy colour. It's a blue that looks like ice. It's a really clear crystalline blue that you see in the background. I absolutely love this book. I think it's gorgeous, and that it really is a creepy cover, which kind of sucked me in straight away and made me want to buy this without even knowing what it was about. So yeah, I'm just really interested in this series. I think instantly the thing that attracted me to it was the figure and the colour, because the figure himself, he really reminds me of the Hound from Game of Thrones, the TV series. I don't know if he does for anyone else, but he really does remind me of him, and instantly that gives me a dark, creepy image, but also quite sinister because of the colour scheme. The colour scheme is this dark icy blue that penetrates straight into you, and the fact that he's all silhouetted in shadow and you can't really see his face because of the long tasselled hair, it's just a really interesting idea straight away, and I just love it. The fact that this colour is continued across the entirety of this man means that we really don't see any sort of humanness about him. He looks kind of weird and strange, and that's a good thing, I think. He doesn't look too relatable. He looks like he's gonna be an interesting character, and that is certainly true, although he does become more relatable in the story. I do love the typography on this. I think it's beautiful. The lettering for Bloodsong is obviously in this kind of gold colour, and it's a lot bigger than the rest of the typography, as it should be because it's the title. It's central, it's at the bottom. I love the design of it. I think that the fact that the serifs have been elongated to look like daggers is really cool, and the fact that it's very metallic is awesome because obviously that links back in with the sword. He actually has 2 swords on his back, and he is a good swordsman, our main character, so that all again links in with the story. The fact that Bloodsong itself actually has gashes as well, where the letters look as though they have been sliced with a sword, that's really cool, and I think whoever did the typography on this is amazing. I love the fact that we also get a strapline on this one in white. The strapline says, "Born for battle, bred for war," and how true is that of this story? It really gets you interested. It instantly tells you a bit about this book and how awesome it's going to be. So definitely I love having that on there. I think it's completely true. The white is nice, it fits with the icy colour. And then we have the author's name, Anthony Ryan, at the bottom here, which is in ice blue, again to reflect the background colour. So that all fits really well. The whole design comes together really well. The fact that the character himself looks really interesting and definitely typical of a fantasy, blends really awesomely. We have this guy who is all dressed up in his winter furs. He looks like he's in an icy scenery. It all works really well. Would I buy this? 100%. I do own it. I love it. And I think that this is an amazing cover. So yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think. Moving on to the hardback edition, which is actually published by Ace Hardbacks and came out in 2013 as well. This one has 575 pages. What we have is someone's arm, and we actually see that it is aligned to the right hand side. So we can see a bit of space down the left hand side, but then we see a person's arm and torso, and they are holding onto a sword with both of their hands interlinked like so. That's really interesting. Instantly, the stance is very powerful. It looks very strong. It looks like someone is very muscular, and it certainly gets you to believe that the characters are going to be interesting. They're going to be ready for battle. There's going to be war. There's going to be blood. There's going to be all sorts of cool things within this book, which is certainly true. I love the fact that it's lit again in half shadow and half light, so you can see areas of dark shadow and you can see areas of bright white light, which is really lovely. I think the fact that the armour is very battle armour, it's not so much practical every day. It shows that there are going to be battles, there are going to be wars, although I don't think that that relates quite as well to this book as it does on book number 2, because obviously book 2 is much more about battle and war than this one is. This one's a lot more about training. But on the whole, I think it does work well. The armour has this glove. I think that's a really nice thing to have on the arm. I think a plain bit of arm would not work, so I think that that sort of glove thing is really cool.
Is it a gauntlet? I'm not well versed in armour.
And then we have the typography. The typography is actually in red for the title, Blood Song. Again, I think that the red doesn't fit marvellously well, but because it is called Blood Song, obviously you can say that the red does represent blood, so I think it works in that respect. I think it could have been a better colour, such as the whitish, bright whitey cream colour in the background. That probably would have worked better in my opinion. However, I do like the fact that the red does link with the title itself, so it works. Then we have the author name at the very top of the design. This one is again in a whitish colour. That's the sort of colour I would have preferred the title to be in as well. I think that it works well. Both of them are serif types, so they look quite professional. They look as though they are ready for battle, and I do enjoy the layout. I think it's very nicely spread and the composition is decent. So again, this one's a good cover and I probably would buy it. It is a little bit stereotypical because it's no face and it's just armour and getting ready for battle with a weapon, but that doesn't faze me too much because the story itself is really good. Now moving on to Tower Lord. This one is the edition I have. This is a hardback which is published by Orbit Books, and it was published in 2014. It has 592 pages. The thing I do love about this series is that these two covers, they match really, really well. It's the same character who's been used on both of them, and it just works. There's no horrible, atrocious cover change in the middle, which is good. This one is awesome as well. I absolutely love it, but I think that I prefer Blood Song's cover to this one. Although I do really like the design of this one. Again, the composition is really interesting. We get a bit closer into the figure who we have on the first cover. We also see that his sword is sticking up now. It's not on his back any longer. The fur around his neck is closer, so we can see that he's getting ready to go into battle maybe. And we see this piercing eye looking out straight into your soul. So again, it's a really lovely image. I think the photography is wonderful. We also have this pale background once more repeated. This one is not a blue, it's a kind of silver, which I really like. I think it's gorgeous. And again, this is repeated through into the typography of the title, Tower Lord. So that looks really, really gorgeous. Again, the metallic works really well, and we see the gashes in the lettering and the awesome typography. So on the whole, I think that this works. The thing that I also love is that, once again, the strapline, Sworn to Serve, Destined to Rule, is a gorgeous one and is in white. It again represents what was on the first cover, so that's lovely to see that carried through as a design element. And then we see the author's name at the bottom is once more in the same colour as the background behind. The only thing that I do not like as much about this cover is the fact that the figure himself is not kind of in a certain tone. Like on the first cover it's all in tones of blue. This one he looks much more human, he looks much more approachable, and I actually think that in the second book he becomes less approachable. He becomes more of a leader than someone who we kind of relate to as much, and so I don't think that that is quite as appropriate. I would have liked to see this sheen of this metallic colour kind of across the whole thing maybe, and him to be more in shadow than look as human as he does, but I still think it's a gorgeous cover and it works really well and it's just interesting. So yeah, once again, this one is a lovely one. Would I buy it? Yes, I would. Now, moving on to the final one. Again, this is Tower Lord, and this one is published in hardback by Ace Hardcover, and this one was published in 2014 as well, with 624 pages. And I really like this one. I actually prefer it to the first one from Ace Hardback. I think that this one is a really nice one because of the colour scheme of it. I like the fact that it's got these purple hues on the arm that is pulling the bowstring. I think that that's a really nice thing. I like the pose of this one. It looks quite like it's getting ready for battle. It's getting ready to be an all-out war, but it's not quite there yet, so it hints at something more, which is lovely to see. I like the fact that we have this really intense detail on the armour. We can see all these little metallic bits. We can see all these patches of the armour being woven together. I like that a lot. I think it's really detailed and interesting to see. I do like the composition generally. I like the fact that the body this time is aligned to the other side of the cover. That makes a nice change. On the whole, I think that the layout of this one works pretty well. The only thing I don't like quite as much is the fact that we have this typography that is just not quite the colour I would like it to be. Again, the layout's very similar. We have the title at the bottom and the author name at the top, so that's not too different. But I don't like the orange of Tower Lord. I feel like it would have been better in a pale colour that was quite similar to the background once again. In the background, actually, speaking of that, we do have this tower in the background, which obviously relates to the title itself. A kind of nice addition that's in the background. I don't really care about it too much, like I could take it or leave it, but it is nice to see it there. On the whole, I think this cover is once again a good one. The only thing I would change is the colour scheme. The lettering is the same and it works well, it looks professional. So yeah, it's a decent cover once more, and I probably would pick this one up. Those are all of the covers that I'm going to talk about because they are the only covers that I know about. So yeah, I would love to hear which of these two series you prefer, Ace hardback covers or the Orbit covers. I personally prefer the Orbit covers, but I do like elements of both, and I think if I hadn't seen the Orbit ones I would have picked up the other ones. So yeah, I think they're both really awesome cover designs, but I would love to know which ones you like the best. For me, I like this one the best. I think it's the most awesome out of all of them, and it attracts me to the book the most, which is obviously the main point of a cover. So I think this one's my favourite, but I'd love to know which ones yours are. I'd also love to know if you have any further suggestions of cover chats that you would like to see in the future for different books, series or whatever. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all very soon in my next video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little chat.